Hey, what's up, guys? And welcome to a late night live stream. It's been a while since I've kind of like popped on here and just kind of hung out for a little bit. We got a little bit of time this evening. Kids are down. Hopefully, they stay down. My wife is out at a concert. I got a little bit of time, so I'm kind of just wrapping up here. And I figured let's hop on and just kind of chat about countermeasures. And I specifically wanted to talk about, I guess, some of the new stuff that's coming out. We've got like Uniden R9. There's Escort Redline Ci 360C. There's the Stinger S850, which has been out for a little while. Been running the R9 for a little bit. Still working on getting a copy of the new Redline and the Stinger here on hand. Those, of course, still need to be tested, especially the ones that I don't have. But one thing that I've been thinking about is this stuff can kind of change the dynamics of how things have gone before. And obviously, this video, it's not going to be like a recommendation of like, should you get the Net Radar or the Uniden or the Redenso or the Stinger or the Escort? Like a lot of the new ones we still need to test, right? So this video is just kind of more about my thought process along the way, like as I start getting the new ones in on hand, and also how I think some of the stuff might actually be changing moving forward. And here's what I mean by that. Up to this point, for the past couple years, actually, whenever people sign up and they want to do a private session with me, a lot of times they're like, "Hey, I just bought a new 911, a Corvette, some cool car. I want to get some countermeasures to get protected. What should I get?" And usually, the way that discussion goes, it's like, "All right, typically we're going to start with the laser side and then choose which radar detector you want to add to it." So it's like, "All right, uh, most of the time, people are just going to want to go straight for the ALP, best laser jammer, best performance, best updates, best everything. It's just like the gold standard for laser, right?" There are maybe some situations where people might want to choose something else. Like, for example, you drive an exotic and you're like, "Hey, I really want the teeny tiny fiber heads that the Stinger offers." Cool. They're very capable jammers too. The heads are significantly smaller, much less visually visible, obtrusive, whatever. Occasionally, people want to go that route. Usually, people don't opt for some of the other options like the TMGs or the TPXs. Those are going to be like your kind of more affordable solutions, right? They have their place in that, and they're great for that to save some cash. There's the new TMG Alpha 17s that have come out recently. I've actually got a box sitting here. Still need to do a test with those at some point, but um, usually when people are like, "Hey, I just want the best," it's usually ALP, maybe the Stinger. And then it's a question of like, well, which radar detector do you want to add? And it's like, well, if you're going the custom installed route because you want stuff hidden, right? You're not going for the windshield mount one. It comes down to either like Redenso RCM or Escort Max CI 360. The RCM came out like 5 years ago now. The Max CI also came out quite a while ago now, and it's since been replaced by the Redline, which I think is going to be a much better detector. Kind of solves a lot of the issues and the complaints that a lot of us, myself included, have had with the Max CI 360. However, the way that discussion would go, again, kind of before the new ones have come out, it's like the Redenso RCM is kind of like your integrated option, right? One control pad, one display for radar and laser, which is really nice. So if you want to minimize kind of what's installed in your car, it's really popular. Integrates with the ALP, so like again, everything kind of works together. Plus, compared to the Max CI, I found the blind spot filtering was a little bit better. It added photo radar detection, etc. Like it was nice. So that was like a really common, popular integrated setup. The other way that people would go is like, hey, maybe you want to opt for the Escort as a standalone option in addition to the ALP, right? Occasionally, people might want that fully integrated, kind of like the Redenso ALP setup. So you've got kind of like the Escort for both radar and for laser, but just the ALPs were so much better than the Escort Shifter Max on the laser side that most people, when we're talking, are like, all right, you go for the ALPs and then you just add the Escorts on separately, standalone. Now, if you do that, pros and cons, right? Now, instead of one dedicated control pad for radar and laser, now you have three things in your car. You've got the ALP controller, you've got the Escort controller, and you've got the Escort display. So three things in the car. That could be a downside to people if you want to minimize kind of what's going on. You can do some stuff with like hiding the controllers and all this kind of stuff, right? You can do things, maybe embed the display in your rearview mirror. It's easier to do that with the Escort than with the Redenso. You can do some stuff splitting the Redenso controller and display, but um, you can do maybe more customization with the Escort, I'll say, because the stuff is split up a little bit more. But some of the other advantages of the Escort, okay, didn't have photo radar detection, blind spot filtering wasn't as great. The rear antenna had kind of an older tech, so like you get these nasty like high kind of alerts on K-band and stuff. But you had the multicolor display, which was nice. I like the arrows a little bit better on the Escort compared to the Redenso, and it had auto lockouts, had Bluetooth, right? All this kind of stuff that the Redenso doesn't have. And so if you don't want like the black and white display, you want Bluetooth, you want auto lockouts, maybe you'd go for the Escort. Auto lockouts, I mean, Usually, if you're just driving around in the same area, you can manually lock out the signals. So after a period of time, whether it's locked out manually with the Redenso or auto with the Escort, whatever, Escort has the like accurate frequency displays where the Redenso doesn't, but that's kind of like an advanced feature that most people don't care about. So it would just kind of come down to like, all right, do you want the integrated controller and display? Do you want the photo radar detection? Do you want the better blind spot filtering, or do you want like the auto lockouts and the Bluetooth and the color display and that kind of stuff, right? Both of them were great in terms of range, but that's kind of how things stood, and that was usually how we would walk through stuff with people. There's also like the Stinger. I haven't had a chance to test that one. I've seen one or two people who have it. Good results, mixed results, but I haven't had a chance to test it. And I've been trying for a while, but just supply chain issues. It's been tough to get one of those. So that was kind of like how things have been going to this point. You start with the ALP, maybe choose like Stinger or Escort or something, but typically ALP, and then it's just a question of what radar detector you add onto it. Now, something that's kind of been dawning on me is I feel like that kind of stuff might be changing. I don't know for sure, but the reason that ALP would be the solution is like there wasn't really a good alternative that offers something unique and special that the ALP can't do, right? Nothing jams as well as it. So you're like, okay, what else? And it has pro mode, like good log. It's got logging capabilities, good updates, like a lot of stuff. So that's kind of where the Stinger would come in. It's like the smaller heads actually offers an advantage, something unique that the ALP can't. And if the jamming is still good, which was what we find in testing, okay, it's a viable alternative, But that was kind of something where we'd see like the escorts would sort of fall short and stuff, four heads max instead of six, like the ALPs, or more if you're doing double TX and stuff. But where I see kind of this stuff changing is like, okay, well, there's a Uniden R9, there's the Escort Redline Ci 360C, Stinger VIP with the S850 antennas. Um, with those kind of ones, you have like good options now for the radar side. I feel like at this point, a lot of the question was like, okay, well, you've got the Redenso and the Escort for your radar, but now it's like, well, what if those have potentially good laser jammers too? Like, we'll have to see with the Uniden with like the current firmware and stuff how that fares. The Escort, I've asked a couple times about laser stuff. It seems like, as far as I can tell, similar algorithms, but just smaller heads, which is a nice advantage over the ALP. Like 50% smaller than before, which is cool. I posted a picture, I think, on like Instagram and stuff on Facebook where I kind of put them side by side. Uh, then the Stinger, you got the fiber head. So, like, okay, maybe these have some possible options here on the laser side. But what about the radar side? Okay, well, Max CI 360 has been discontinued, right? Replaced by the Redline CI. And then the Redenso, well, it's like 5 years old at this point, and I'm starting to feel like it's a little bit dated. Like the big advantages when we were looking at head to head with like Redenso versus Escort was like, okay, better blind spot filtering. It had the photo radar detection, which kind of makes it more future proof. And so, like people who bought the RCM have been able to detect photo radar this whole time, whereas the Escort solution hasn't been able to do it until the new hardware change for the Redline CI. So, in that sense, with photo radar, again, the Redenso has been better. But now you look and you're like, well, the R9, the Escort Redline CI, and the Stinger with the S850 and the NetRadar DSP. Actually, like everything now is offering MRCD detection and MRCT and stuff. There's going to be some differences in terms of performance and detection range and GATSO and mesh diffusion and false filtering. Like, of course, there's some differences there, right? Not really my area of expertise since I don't have it around here. I kind of relying on other people. But yes, the other manufacturers are starting to like catch up now on the photo radar front. I think they're actually going to be doing better here on the blind spot filtering front too, which was also another advantage for the Redenso. Redenso was like kind of the first one that was able to knock out like the Hondas and Acuras for like the Pro M and the RCM, which was nice. The big issue with that one though was the Mazda CX-5s would cause those to false all the time. Well, the R9 has a filter specifically for that. The Redline, at least the windshield mount, has been able to take care of it, which is awesome. The Stinger, I believe, should be able to take care of that too, but I don't know for sure. I know they're doing some more advanced stuff with their blind spot filtering, but I haven't tested it. I just know it's nicer and newer than before. I've had mixed results with Stingers in the past, so we'll have to see. And same thing with the Escorts. Like a lot of times at launch, there's some issues and bugs that then have to get sorted out with a couple firmware updates. And so the stuff definitely needs to be tested before we can say conclusively one way or another. But again, just kind of the thought process as I'm watching things unfold, right? Well, we've got detectors now that all should offer good range. I think better blind spot filtering potentially than the Redenso. Also has the photo radar detection. They've also got auto lockouts. I'm starting to feel like, well, the Redenso's starting to fall behind here now on the radar side, and the Escort Max CI 360 is now discontinued. So, okay, I think these new radar detectors are actually going to potentially be a better option now than what we've had before, with the Redenso RCM and the Escort Max CI 360. Okay, well that's interesting. So now it's like, how does all this stuff stand? I've run the Uniden off and on, not like for a ton of time. I've been running it for the past couple of weeks again, but I mean, like that one seems to be a viable option. You guys are familiar with a lot of the Uniden stuff at this point, right? It does have some advanced kind of like K block stuff, additional K blocks. So it's nice. And kind of the stuff that we've seen like with the R7 with that firmware update 1.50, the international one that Mithuru made. There's some additional like K blocks on there. Um, yeah, as far as how many K blocks, there's I think 3 that are built in, and then 5 more that you can add yourself to customize. So you got 8 total. It's funny, the whole debate on like K block versus BSM filtering. That's a funny one because you're like, all right, well, Escort has gone the approach of let's try to actually filter this stuff out, right? Um, but then you wind up having issues with like some delays against some radar guns, and sometimes they weren't detecting it, and they've had to update it. And so now like they've been improving uh, the responsiveness, but it's still quite a bit slower than the Unidens. The Unidens are like, all right, maybe we'll get you the responsiveness if you need it against instant on and quick trigger and stuff, but to deal with it, you're going to have a more simplistic filter like the K blocks. It's kind of a stupid hack. It's a silly band-aid compared to like more sophisticated filtering, but it does have advantages for responsiveness. Pros and cons to both, and it's funny you see the debates and stuff. It's like neither one of them are perfect. It's just different approaches while people are trying to figure out the perfect BSM filtering to maintain effective filtering and performance. It's a balance, and they're kind of going with different approaches with that. I'm really curious to see like with the Stinger how that one fares. I don't know if there's been like response time testing and BSM filtering effectiveness and range and all that kind of stuff, right? So that should be interesting just to kind of see how that kind of stuff goes. So that would be something to test is like the responsiveness on K-band with kind of all these new ones. But kind of coming back to this discussion, I'm like, okay, well, I think the R9 could be a good option for people on radar. The Escort could be a good option for radar. The Stinger has to be tested, but if it lives up to expectations, that could be a good option too. Um, and you're like, okay, maybe these are good options as well. I'm kind of wondering because like one interesting thing, we kind of broke down the pricing on all this. Let me pull up the thread. It was on RDF. I kind of sat down the other day. So one of the interesting things about the R9 is actually the price of it. A fully spec'd out ALP, 6 heads with like 4 regular and 2 TX, front and rear coverage, plus Bluetooth and Hi-Fi, you're looking at around $2,700. Now, for another $300, $3,000, now you've got a full R9, which is 6 heads for United's laser, plus their radar detector front and rear. So you've got a fully equipped, custom installed radar detector and laser jammer. Now, of course, the big question is like, well, how good are the laser jammers? Are they effective? In testing, we've seen some good stuff, but again, we have to see like with final firmware, that kind of stuff, like what is it actually capable of, right? But assuming the laser side is like good enough, and some of the weird things we're still seeing with like how the JTK works, it's been improved, but still some issues. Like how that, if assuming that stuff gets adjusted, it could potentially be an option where like, hey, the laser is good enough, right? And you get the radar detector, so that could be a potential viable option. Now, the R9 is surprisingly cheap. Like if you run the numbers here again, you're $3,000 for the R9. If you want to go up to like the ALP with the net radar DSP, which is kind of like the budget option, if you will, that option, so ALP 6 heads, net radar DSP front and rear, it's extra $800, brings you up to $3,820, right? So $800 more to get the ALP with like the cheapest radar detector that you can get paired with it. Now, the next step up is the Redline Ci 360C. That's going to be $4,300. So we're at $1,300 more than the R9. Okay, radar detector, we could compare like windshield mounts and kind of do like a rough comparison to get an idea of how that'll fare. On the laser side, you've got 5 heads, expandable up to 6, but comes with 5. The heads are going to be smaller. It's definitely a big question mark as far as how good the laser jammers are, but assuming the heads are good enough for people, uh, okay. I mean, I think the red line is not available yet. You are going to be able to buy it standalone to do just the radar and then add on the ALP. I don't think pricing has been released for the standalone red line, so that's still a question mark. But let's say, just for the sake of discussion, you want to do the fully loaded Escort solution. That could be an option where you get a good radar detector, and if the laser jammer is good enough, and you get the smaller heads, that's actually an advantage over the ALP. It, of course, doesn't have all the features and the capabilities, and I don't expect updates and performance to be as good, but still, it potentially could be good enough in some situations, right? The Redenso RCM, it's like what, $2,100 for just the radar detector. If you pair it with the ALP and get like the Redenso Ultimate 2.0 package, that's $4,700. So for like Redenso ALP versus Uniden R9, it's a $1,700 price gap. It's pretty substantial. Now, are there differences? Yes, of course, in terms of features for radar, capabilities for laser. The Redenso does come with a lifetime warranty. and a lifetime speeding ticket guarantee. So that's an advantage for the Redenso, but you're still looking at like a pretty significant cost savings for the Uniden. Okay, what about like the Stinger comparison? I spec that one out for fun. So if you do Stinger S850, they've got two antennas, the 25 and the 50. The 50 is like that higher end one with like additional polarization coverage. And then you do like six heads for laser. So three in the front, three in the rear, separate transmit and receive. You're looking at $8,280, assuming I did the numbers right, compared to 3,000. So that's what, going from 3,000 to like 8,200 to the Stinger. So that's a big jump, right? So you're looking at this, and like usually a lot of the stuff is around 4,000. So ALP with net radar, 3,800, Escort Redline, 4,300, Redenso RCM Ultimate 2.0, 4,700 versus R9, 3,000. So that kind of makes it interesting. It's like, okay, the unit is not perfect. We know that, right? They've got their issues. None of the stuff is perfect. I'm never expecting that, but like, okay, if the radar is good enough, the laser is good enough, is that a potential option just as a way to like save some cash as opposed to going for the high end stuff? For some people, maybe. I'm kind of curious to see like how it works with. I don't know how they're going to be doing on the distribution side. Like, can they get distributors? Because a lot of people are like, hey, if you want to go buy something, that's a lot of times something where you just go to like a local installer who's going to sell you this kind of stuff. They're going to take care of the installation. They're comfortable with how to do the install. They're a dealer for the company, right? So that's something that companies like Escort and Redenso and K40 and a lot of these like manufacturers, they work directly with a lot of these installers to maintain those relationships, to have them be a dealer, to sell the equipment, to know how to install it, to warranty it, to work on repairs, like all that kind of stuff, right? I don't know how the Uniden would work as like just online sales and distribution, like if you want to buy through BRD or directly off Uniden's website or wherever you buy it online, right? I'm really curious to see how that's going to fare. I don't know, like if they've got all the distribution set up. That's not really my area of expertise per se. I focus more on like the technical feature stuff, not on like marketing and sales and customer service and all that, right? So that's for Uniden to figure out, of course, but that's something I'm kind of curious about as well. But from like a price perspective, the R9 seems like it's going to be a good deal. Now, what about the red line? We'll have to see, of course. I've seen a couple people who've already purchased it, and it sounds like so far the feedback is pretty similar to what we're seeing with the windshield mounts, with like, hey, good blind spot filtering, minimal false alerts. Awesome, that's cool. Um, you've got the what's it called? Like, should have good range. I do like that Escort actually gave it like the higher end antenna, both front and rear for radar. They didn't cheap out on the rear antenna the way they did with the Maxi i360. So thank you, Escort, on that. So I think that could be a good option on the radar. Based on what I've seen with the windshield mounts, I would probably lean toward the Escort just to get the better blind spot filtering with the red line instead of the R9. Um, yeah, we'll have to see kind of how the rest of the stuff goes. The Wi-Fi that comes with it now. The Maxi, I didn't have that. The red line does. So I think that could be a good option too. A lot of the question mark, I think, is like, okay, has Escort addressed all the initial bugs? Hopefully they have. And then also maybe a bigger one is, what's the laser stuff like? That we don't know. I don't think anybody's tested it yet. I've been trying to like encourage people in the forums, if you've got it, let's get some guns on hand. Let's set up a test. Like, go out and test and let's find out. So a lot of these things are changing, and same thing with Stinger. It's like, okay, it's a pricey system, but like, let's get one of those in. Let's test it. Let's see how the performance is. Is it reliable? Like, how do they handle updates? How effective is the laser capability? Um, are the lockouts working well? Is the display good? Do I get weird like touch issues on the display? It's funny, the fibers that I have now, there's actually new hardware for the fibers. So like, there's new heads, and so like the system that I have, it's like several generations old, and they keep like upgrading the hardware, which it's interesting. I've got mixed feelings about that. And it's like, well, with the custom installed thing, it's a big investment to buy the equipment, to get it installed, and it's not something that's easy to swap out and get new hardware, right? Occasionally it's necessary. ALP had like the hardware for CPUs or the new TX blackheads and stuff. Like, yeah, there are times when a hardware update is necessary. It's the same reason why companies release like new phones periodically. Like, you can get the software updates for a new version of Android, new version of iOS, but like, you need new hardware updates too for the faster processor and better cameras and all that, right? It comes with the territory. I get it, but like, it's easier to buy a new phone than it is to like get a new custom installed radio detector and all new laser jammers and redo mounts and cut holes in the car and run wires. Like, it's a big deal for that kind of stuff. So I would hope that like the hardware would last a long time, but I understand that sometimes you got to have a hardware update too. And so I'm like, hey, this stuff keeps changing, and every time I go out to test, I'm like, okay, there's all new stuff on laser. I've had I don't know, 4 generations of laser with like the boxy heads and the different fibers and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, let's see. Big Doggy's mentioning the Redline Ci is much quieter than the R7 and the Max Ci. The filtering makes it virtually silent. Double checking to ensure that it's actually on. Yeah, exactly. Um, that's kind of what we've been seeing on like the windshield mount side too. So I expect the same to be true for the custom installed. Um, let's see. Yeah, more questions asking about like the R8 and stuff. Let's keep going about the Stinger, and then we'll kind of like jump around with different topics. But I'm really curious to see like with Stinger, as far as their marketing, they got some big claims. I've talked to them as well quite a bit as far as like some of the stuff they've been working on over the years, and um, I really hope that they can get stuff nailed, right? That things are reliable, that they're effective, that they work well. Looks like my door's open. Dog's here. Hey, buddy, come on over. Come join me. Welcome to the live stream. My dog just came to join us. You want to come up? All right, come on. Come on. Ah, come on up. Say hi. Say hi. So, as long as like the radar detection at this point, like I just want the radar to work well, right? Be reliable, have the arrows work well, um, the lockouts work out well. I would expect their photo radar stuff to be on point because like they've been working on that forever overseas in Western Europe. So like they got a ton of that out there. So that should be good. Not a big deal for me, but like that should be good. Um, as long as it's like sufficiently reliable and you got good performance and hopefully false alert filtering that's at least as good as like the Escort, be more expensive. But if you want the fiber heads and stuff, laser, I do see the advantage for the smaller heads. For radar, um, I don't know. I mean, is the range going to be better? Is the false alert filtering going to be better? Maybe the photo radar I could see better if that's important. Cool. Actually, I don't know how the Redline versus Stinger would compare on the radar side. Uh, obviously, hard to say because again, I don't have either one yet. Right? So we're just kind of this is speculating. Whatever. It's 8:30, and yeah. By the way, thanks for all you guys who are hanging out here on like a Friday night. I know it's super late on the East Coast. It's like 11:30 p.m. East Coast, 8:30 here on the West Coast now. But hey. Anyway, yeah, I'm really curious to see like Redline versus Stinger and kind of what justifies the price increase. Like I could see it on the laser side, but I'm curious for the radar side. Like if you were to say maybe Redline for radar, Stinger fibers, you could do that. Like as opposed to maybe just doing integrated. What would be the advantage of Stinger radar? I don't actually know. Um, that might be an interesting one to check out. So if you guys have any ideas, maybe in the comments, let me know. But I'm really curious. Maybe one of my biggest hesitations is I've had issues in the past with Stingers with like releasing a firmware update and it fixes something, but it breaks something else. And I mean, yeah, the Stinger system that I have in my car at this point, it's toast. It's old. It doesn't even like work properly anymore. It just throws errors when I try to power it up and stuff. Like it's several generations old, but like kind of a bummer. So I have this effectively dead Stinger with old hardware and displays and everything that I can't use anymore. So I've tried to use it for testing, but at this point, it's like, okay, well, I've got the R9 right now. I've been driving with that. I still need to do some like some testing with that. I've got all my laser guns shipped out to other testers at this point, but I could at some point set up a red barn test. I'm a little like, oh man, I have to go do all the testing again. It's so time consuming. It could be nice. I'm kind of thinking of like how to do that. Maybe test R9 radar for like first the Max CI, first the Net Radar DSP. I guess. Like, are you guys interested in seeing that? I don't know. I could. Um, I'm also curious. Like, all right, should I? I would also. I guess at this point, it might make more sense to test it. Like, hey, is it R8? Is it a custom installed R8 performance wise? Let's test it out. I've got it right now running like in the headrest. For a while, I kind of ran it on the sun visor pouch, but then my wife kind of blocked her visibility a little bit. She couldn't flip down the sun visor, so now I've got it like tucked under the passenger side up in the front headrest, just smushed under the headrest for testing, and then pointing out the back for the rear ones. So I'm like, I could run it there. I could do like windshield mount test, or I can like temporarily just install it down in the grill. Again, pros and cons. Maybe I'll do both. I don't know, but it could be interesting. Just so I think for that test, it's like be like R9 versus R8, Redline 360C, V1 Gen 2. Maybe throw in like a Max 360C Mark II or something, just to see like how good is that range compared to I don't know original Max 360C or something. Maybe do that. Um, Throw an R7 in there or something. Like I don't want to like have test creep get too big because like it takes so much time to do these tests and all. So maybe one day AI could help me with radar detector testing and speed that up because like man, it's so much. So at some point, I got to do that. I don't have any immediate plans for like the red barn test, but I think that at least I'd like to do at some point. We'll see. I know some of the other testers are also working on their own stuff, so maybe like that would be sufficient just to give us the info that we need. And I'll kind of hold off until I get like other custom installed stuff. I kind of figure like with the R9, as long as it performs on par with like an R8, that's all at least I really care about. Honestly, like as long as the range is good, great. The other stuff is like, okay, how does that compare to the Net Radar? How does it compare to the Redline Ci? How does it compare to the Stinger? That's actually what I'm more directly curious about with the R9. Um, which also is part of the reason why I'm not like super gung ho about running out and doing a bunch of red barn testing with the R9 because I'm just testing it against like mostly windshield mounts. So again, I could test like Max CI or something and NetRadar DSP and I guess RCM. I do have that one installed too. So I could do 4 custom installed ones and that could be interesting. Um, maybe I'll do that. So again, just thinking aloud here at night while we do this, but maybe let me know in the chat as well, like what you're most interested in seeing the R9 tested against specifically, like for range. So photo radar, other people are doing. Other people are also setting up like radar stuff. Other people doing help them with laser. Um, laser, I'd like to do the shootout with Stinger, Escort, ALP, regular and ALPTX, TMG, Alpha 17, TPX. Yeah. A lot for that. Explore Casper needs to be at least R4. R8 still not there. That's interesting. I wonder why that's the case. Like sometimes the R4 does still give us a little bit better range than the R8. It's kind of like the R8 is an R4 just with arrows, which is mostly true, but not entirely. Like sometimes the R4 actually performs a little better, which is weird. Um, R8 is still good. It's no slouch by any means, but it's weird to kind of see that sometimes. Yeah, let's see. Let's hop into the chat here and kind of see what you guys are saying. Eric Gilbert, already saved me thousands in tickets. Jeremiah, R3 is flawless. Let's see. Saying laser doesn't exist, just saying out west it's overkill. Depends. Some people are like, see a ton of laser. Some people see a ton of radar. It really depends on where you drive. So yeah, like you're saying out west. I mean, I see radar pretty frequently. Laser once every year or two, I get hit. So like, I mean, yeah, I guess my experience, Eric, is similar to yours. The Thinking Stone. What's really coming in for the future for Uniden that will be like the R8 for people not interested in the R9? You mean like future updates for the R8? I mean, I'd love to see some of the K blocks and stuff that Uniden has added to the R9. Bring that over to the R8. I think that would be a no-brainer. I want auto lockout fixes. Like, just freaking fix that. They keep releasing new stuff. It was the R7 and then the R4 and then the R8 and now the R9, and they all have the same broken auto lockouts. Like, even today I was driving with the R9 and I keep driving with it, and there's a signal that's not getting locked out. And I'm like, at some point, I just need to manually lock the thing out. Like, it's weird. It's same stuff there. So I don't know why that's not getting fixed. I don't know, but yeah, I'd love to see that. The RDD immunity, something to test. It's so that's actually something too. I've been meaning to test like R7 with the stealth stuff that's built in. Could test the R9, but like I don't know, the company that made the Spectres is out of business now. There's some floating around until those break and die and can't be replaced anymore. So like that's never something that's been a huge priority here in the United States. And with the company that manufactures them going out of business, I kind of wonder like about the relative importance of that testing and devoting the time and energy to that. Like if I only have so much time and there's a ton of things on my plate that I could do, I kind of feel like all the RDD stuff sort of gets pushed down the list, you know? So yeah, kind of curious about that. Hear one of the kids moving around. Please stay asleep. Please don't wake up in the middle of this. If I gotta go, I gotta go. I mean, obviously kids take priority, but hopefully they still stay sleeping. See him on the camera. Guess he's still asleep. He's just rolling around. So yay. Corvette fanatic. Can radar cameras be jammed? Radar are technically challenging and highly illegal to do. I mean, there are some radar jammers like the Scorpion and the Blue Radar and stuff that was mostly for like older radar systems and just for overseas. But it's like incredibly illegal to jam radar, so nobody sells radar jammers. Nobody does that. Like it's very different, like jamming radar versus jamming laser. So Yeah, laser jammers, radar detection. That's kind of how the two work. Let's see. People in the chat talking about like Dirt Burger running R7 West Coast. Cool. People talking about CHP zero laser. No, they definitely run laser. I believe they're like true speeds and stuff out there. Um, New Mexico Highway Patrol all KA. Texas DPS all KA from Louisiana to Dallas through Albuquerque, or maybe Los Angeles to Dallas, LA. So yeah, questions about that stuff. Let's see. Oh, GT Pro, coming back to the R9. I'd like to see you compare the R9 to the Escort Max Ci because that's what I've gotten or what I would have gotten if I went for the custom install. Interesting. So that's an interesting idea. In my head, I've been like, well, it's being discontinued, it's being replaced by the Redline, so why bother doing that? But I mean, not a bad idea. I haven't run the Max Ci in a little while. I kind of did a couple months ago. I ran like RCM and Max Ci a little bit. Um, when I was getting back into like R9 is coming, that kind of stuff. Let's run the other ones. But then like, okay, the Redline Ci is coming out and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's again pushed down on the priority list. So I could talk about that. Maybe like when I get to a comparison at some point with like R9 versus everything else, I'll bring up the Max Ci. Um, that's a good idea. Thanks for bringing that up. I'll be sure to like make a mental note and at least bring it up. Eric, thanks for posting your settings on the R8. Cheers. Lucas, do you know when laser heads for the R8 are coming? I don't. Uh, I haven't asked about that specifically. I would hope that it's around the same time as the R9 comes out. It's the same laser jammers, exact same jammers that they use, and the control pad is going to be available for the R4 and the R8. It's the same one that comes in the R9, so they'll have the parts. I don't know how they're going to work with like, do they have the boxes? Are going to put it up on their website, and what's the price going to be, and when it's available for sale? Like, I don't know the actual everything else that's tied to that and stuff, but like it's the same stuff, so they'll have them at least. Hopefully they release it around the same time. Yeah, of course the Thea questions are coming up. And we're like, man, I don't know. They just need to release it at this point. I mean, AI is awesome. Like you guys have seen all the stuff that's going on, and like, cool AI and a radar detector. There's Thea, great. But like, you got to release the thing. So whatever's going on there, wish them all the best. I hope they get it released sometime. But at this point, like, yeah, we're moving on. We're talking about other stuff. So RCM, Redline Ci, Stinger, R9, like, yeah, we're focusing on that. So, oh, interesting. Rona Timalala. Is it worth buying the Escort Laser Shifter ZW5? If you need the wireless thing, I mean, I still run it on my wife's car. It's fine. I mean, it's not the latest and greatest, but it still does the job. If you get a smaller car with just two heads, cool, whatever. I mean, we've got like PL4s out here and stuff. There's no Dragon Eye. So for our use case, it's fine. She didn't want anything drilled through the firewall. Great. Small Honda Fit, two heads, no Dragon Eye. That's like kind of the ideal use case for a ZW5, right? So they'll do the job in a select situation. That was kind of like what we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation with like there's specific use cases where something that other than an ALP makes sense if and this is I guess a good example with it, but like it's not amazing. Let's see, ZW5 struggles with even a stalker. Yeah, I mean, don't expect like the best performance ever, but like if you rarely see laser, you just need something minimal and simple. Fine, but like the ALP, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a better one. But like there's situations where you can still get by. Easy guns, smaller cars, easy install. Sure, they're on the ZW5. I've seen people do it even for like rental cars and stuff, just because it's so much easier to install. So like there's specific use cases, but nobody's gonna go around saying like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread and the laser jamming is amazing and the best thing ever, right? Like let's be real here. But yeah. Tom B. Still love the STIR plus. Man, I wonder how many people are still running their STIRs. I think I've got like the STIR head in there, like to plug into the ALP or something. Um, I think it was the O actually. I don't know if it's the plus or the O, but yeah, that was great. I'm still sad about that. I had an STIR plus. I had an issue, sent it out for repair, came back, and somebody stole it off my doorstep when I was at work. Came home and STIR plus was gone. So like, still makes me a little sad thinking about that, but. It's a great setup. And back in the day, get there, Beltronics tones, great range. Yeah, that was cool. Pre BSN filtering needed, but yeah, it's great. Let's see. Oh, I see a lot of Washington State Patrol use laser in our area. Yeah, where do you drive? And like, do you know what guns you've been seeing? I see them in certain spots, like I-5 and 405 on the north side. Sometimes I like to camp there. Um, a couple spots. I saw them actually on like 520 on the bridge actually a couple weeks ago. I picked up some scatter. They were shooting the guy in the HOV lane passing me. Um, but yeah, I mean, the guns that it's like PL4s and stuff. I've seen some True Speed S. So you're saying 167, okay, and I-5. What part of I-5 are you seeing it? Like around Seattle or yeah, Monus Brewer. Is there any software update for the R7 like the R3 and R4? What do you mean software update for the R7, like the R3 and R4? Like, do you mean Mithrus firmware, like the custom stuff? Because there is for that one specifically. It's actually awesome. If you want like his custom firmware, it's firmware version 1.50 international. I highly, highly recommend it for the R7. Like improved auto lockouts, improved K block stuff. You get like the auto sensitivity adjustment stuff implemented a little bit differently than it's on the R8, but it's more advanced than how it's done on the R8. So it's a nice upgrade. I mean, so get R7, throw in the firmware. I think it's like $40 or something. I forget what it is. Well worth it for the money. Now it's getting a little bit darker. My room is starting to glow more. I can see it here. And like, this is pretty cool. It's having more of an effect. So I'm getting a little bit of sunlight coming in through the window as like the sun's starting to set. But like, this is cool. A little bit of the edge lighting on my face. And like, that's a little blue back here. That's fun. So anyway, playing around. Fun. Goof around. Let's see. Monos Brewer. Custom software. Yes. Yeah. Hop on the forums. It's in the Uniden section. You'll find it like R7 1.50 International. Go check it out. Go buy it. Been meaning to do a video on it, but it's like, okay, well, I got to do the RDD testing and stuff to see what that's like, and just down on the priority list. So just busy. It's why my free time right now is 9 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm here sitting here live streaming. It's just everything takes time. So yeah. Eric, let's see. I think unless they're laying a trap for you, most speed enforcement is KA. Wiring laser heads in a new car sounds like a pain and ridiculously expensive. You can do it yourself. Some cars are easier to do than others. Sometimes mounting the heads can be part of the trickiest part. Running the cable through the firewall, depending on your car, can be tricky. On my Miata, I had somebody actually just drill a hole through my firewall for me, and I just stuck the cables through myself and did the install. Like that was nice. Running the cables actually like back through the for the rear top that goes up and down, going like back through the motors and stuff, kind of cut my hands up a little bit. That was a little tricky to do too. So of course, some cars are easier to work on than others, but yeah, I mean, laser, it's a lot more involved for both like product and the labor costs in terms of pricing. So yeah, there's definitely more to it. So like here in Washington, radar by far is going to be a bigger bang for the buck. I mean, as far as protecting you, cost less. Throw it up in the windshield to get your detector. Like, yeah, I mean, laser is good to have too for sure, but radar, oh my gosh, so much more useful. At least out here, your mileage may vary depending on where you drive. So let's see. Let's scroll back through the chat some more. Let's see what you guys have been chatting about. CHP and Texas DPS. You should definitely use laser too. Talking about weather stuff. Let's see. Stealth from the Spectre. The thing, okay, so Big Doggy, the big thing that sets the Escort apart from the Uniden and Redenso is a stealth from the Spectre. Oh, okay, well, we're on the topic. Drive to Canada, DC, or Virginia, and it's a must. If you need the feature, yeah. It's funny, with the RCM, I did my Spectre testing, and then after I did that, whoops, people were saying, like, oh, the new version of it actually is better in terms of RDD immunity. So that's cool. I don't know if that's actually true. I haven't tested with like a new version or anything, but cool. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, RDD, I expect the Escort and the Stinger to actually be better in that regard than the Uniden or the Redenso, just based on what I've seen before. But of course, we'll have to see how it goes. Let's see. My dad has a V1. Gotten quite a few radar tickets where it never went off. Possible cause. People are asking, yeah, was it pacing or laser? That's usually what we see. The V1 is generally pretty awesome at detecting radar. I mean, it's not designed for photo radar, which I know people sometimes like to get. If you turn off all the filters, you're going to detect MRCD or like, whatever. Usually when that happens, it's like this laser. I actually saw somebody on Facebook said, hey, I got a ticket. My whatever detector I was running didn't alert, and then they showed a picture and like it was a dragon eye. I was like, well, yeah, get a jammer, get a laser jammer. In that situation, yeah, radar detectors are really not that great for it. So yeah, that's usually what happens most of the time. It could potentially be a settings thing with your detector not alerting and you get a ticket. It could be pacing. The cop just kind of like follows you and he looks at his speedometer and matches your speed and pulls you over that way, so your detector isn't going to alert because he's not using his radar gun. So, um, yeah, that's usually how that works. Let's see, Big Doggy. Do you risk any real case sensitivity using K-notch filtering on the red line? Yes. That filter is specifically designed to reduce the sensitivity pretty significantly uh, of the detector, like around 24 point, what is it, 190 to 210-ish, somewhere around there. I forget off the top of my head, but you're 24.199-ish. Like that's what it's for, right? And the way that it's doing is it's just reducing the sensitivity of all signals in that frequency range. Um, to notch, you're notching out, you're reducing the sensitivity in that range. So yes, it's definitely going to reduce the sensitivity. I do find though that like with the uh, latest firmware updates, I don't really necessarily need to run the K notches anymore the way that I used to. So even with like the K notch disabled, you can get improved performance, and you're no longer really reliant on that filter to the same degree, nearly, to get the detector to quiet down. So yeah, so I don't really mess with that too much anymore. But I mean, you can always turn it on if you want to, I guess, but it's not really necessary anymore. Let's see. Monas, can someone post a link to the forums? I lost my link. Yeah, just go to RDF and then just go like to the Uniden section, and then you'll. I think it might even be sticky at the top, R7 1.50, but you'll find it first page. It should be there somewhere. Does the Bluetooth firmware upgrade on the R8 conflict with the Bluetooth on the car? Because BMW requires Bluetooth for Android Auto. Nope. The Bluetooth is only going to be connecting to your phone. That's it. And your phone can be connected to like your car. It can be connected to your phone. It can be connected to a radar detector. It can be connected to I don't know, the headphones. Like your phone could be connected to multiple devices over Bluetooth and stuff. So if it's connected to Android Auto, cool. But as long as your phone can connect to other devices too, great. Your R8 isn't connecting to the car or anything. That's something that people actually ask a lot. Is like, can my detector connect to my car stereo and just play audio over the car stereo? And like, none of them actually do that. The workarounds I've seen are just things like, hey, detector to phone, and then phone duplicates the audio and pipes it out your car stereo, or do something with like the headphone jack goes to like a Bluetooth transmitter, which then goes out to like your headphones in a motorcycle or something. Like I've seen that kind of stuff, but none of the detectors actually connect directly to your car. So it's a phone thing more than a car thing. Let's see, my Max 360 falses on KA more often. Do you know what it's falsing to? Because usually KA falses aren't too bad, but they can of course happen. Um, Also, if you know what frequency, maybe let me know that too. You can do like band segmentation or something if you need on K band with that one. Woozy, do I even need K band on here in Washington? Depends on where you drive. Um, in many places, you could safely disable it. I turn it off in my mom's car, my wife's car, like just to keep things quieted down. I think with newer Escort updates, I could potentially turn it back on, but there's so little that I'm like, it's fine. There is still some K band that I see in Issaquah. I think Everett has it. Seen some in Mill Creek, I believe. Up and down I-5, you'll occasionally see it, especially when you get out of Seattle. If you start going across like I-90 or was it 12 or 2, whatever the other one is, like sometimes the smaller towns out there, they'll run them. I'll see some K-band there. There's another one I'm trying to remember. But yeah, Spokane has it. It's mostly KA, but there's some like Falcon HRs that I see used by Kirkland. That was the other one. Kirkland has Falcon HRs. Um, so yeah, there is some K band that's in use, but I mean, depending on where you drive, it can be so minimal that you can potentially turn it off. I see people do it. Um, risk versus reward, like anything, right? So, but it's an option. Let's see, Big Doggy. I haven't found the need to try the K notch. So, alarm just turned on. So not sure if it's worth it for what I might be getting for my Honda and Acura stuff, considering K band. Sorry, I'm going to read that again. I haven't found the need to try the K notch, so not sure it's worth it for what I might get for the Honda and Acura stuff, considering K band is still used in my area. Okay, yeah. So if you've got the Redline Ci, and if it's used in your area, probably just leave it turned off at this point. I think I've updated my settings guides to now recommend K notch off. I have to double check. But I think at this point, it's like, yeah, just leave it off and you're fine. If for whatever reason you just happen to be getting a ton of 24.199-ish falses from Hondas and Acuras, which I don't think you will, but if you do, you can turn it on. And maybe keep an eye on like what frequencies you're seeing for K-band in your area for like legitimate officers too. That could be useful. And then, yeah, I'm actually really glad actually at the beginning that we talked about all the like custom installed stuff because that's something I've been thinking about for a while. Just like I want to sit down and just talk about custom installed stuff because that's not what I focus on as much, and I've been meaning to do a video on it. So I'm glad that we just sat down. Like it's not as definitive yet because I don't have the Redline Ci. I don't have the Stinger yet. Like um, Max Ci is now gone. The R9. It's like okay, well, there's still a lot of unknowns and question marks, and particularly the laser stuff for the Escort, the Stinger, and now like updated unit and stuff. So there's still a lot of question marks, but I'm glad that yeah, at least I had a chance to sit down and talk about it. Big Doggy, think your guide recommended having K notch on? It used to, definitely used to, yeah. Um, I think I'll go in and turn it off though for the time being, uh, or at least, excuse me, go into the guide later on and just set it to off for people. I don't think it's really necessary. Risk versus reward. Let's see, Charlie Lloyd. How about laser chatter detection? Can help. Would you agree? Did I miss something? What do you mean? Like, are you talking about scatter? As far as like laser scatter being helpful for something? Can you maybe clarify in the chat? Uh, Thomas Anthony. My brother has the R4 and it was false into K band. Or sorry, X band. Makes sense. So we turned off that band. Are there any departments that still use X band radar? I live in Ohio and heard that X band is still in use. Yeah, there is some X band used in Ohio. Um, you can always hop on the forums to try to get like better information as far as like what departments, what cities, what sections of highways. But yeah, Ohio and New Jersey, I think it's southern New Jersey, still has it in use. So yeah, you can always just hop on the forums and get information from the locals in your area. So there's a couple other places. I think it was like rural, is it North Carolina or something? Oregon, I've heard reports. I don't know how old or recent those reports are, but there's just a couple places, but still Ohio and New Jersey are the big two on that. So yeah, if you want to turn off X band, a lot of people do. I turn it off, but it's not in use here in Washington. So again, risk versus reward with a lot of that kind of stuff. Bone. I love my R7 and current firmware treats me well for the West Coast. Would there be any reason to install custom firmwares? I don't use K or X bands when I'm in the US. Travel to Mexico sometimes. Ooh, okay. Well, if you want to turn on K-band detection, you could do that. If you live in Southern California, I think that is mostly KA. Then yeah, okay. So things like the extra K blocks, the RDD immunity, the advanced like auto mode or whatever isn't really going to benefit you. So in that situation, probably not. Won't really help you that much. Um, yeah. So in your case, maybe not. Save your money. I mean, sounds like you don't really need it. If you ever wanted to turn K-band back on, that might be the biggest reason to get the better blind spot filtering, aka additional K notches, and the auto mode for sensitivity. That would be, I guess, the two biggest things. There's some other stuff too with like the red light cameras and whatnot, but yeah. Jeff W. Escort Live versus Drive Smarter. How do you switch between? You are going to want to make sure that you're only running one at a time. You'll need to like force close the app and like disconnect one of the apps before you switch over to the other. That's a similar issue we see with like the Valentines. Basically, if you have multiple apps available, you just want to use one at a time. But yeah, I mean, I know Escort's really pushing Drive Smarter. I like the simpler UI of Escort Live, especially with the settings and connecting to multiple detectors and stuff. But I know they're really pushing this Drive Smarter thing, and they want that to effectively replace Escort Live. So moving forward, I expect that to be the kind of default option. But currently, I'm not convinced that it's the better option per se. Let's see, Big Doggy. One other improvement I've noticed on the Redline Ci versus Max Ci is the stored locations stick better. Interesting. I don't know. Is not sure if the drift doesn't affect it as much or it just stores more memory. Yeah, I mean, are you saying like with the Max CI you had some signals that would get unlocked or something, or they would take longer to lock out or something? Like, what situations would you run into where the stored locations don't stick per se? That's interesting. I haven't heard a lot of complaints about like escort detectors unlocking. If anything, they're overly aggressive to the point of like risking a ticket from an officer or something. So usually they don't have an issue like getting unlocked like that. Um, I don't know off the top of my head like how wide the lockout range is, frequency range on the Max CI or anything. They change that all the time and whatever. But yeah, they would. Okay, so they would unlock a manually saved location. Huh. That's also something like, do auto unlocks trigger for manual locked out signals or just auto unlocked? Sounds like they work for manual unlock too, so that's interesting. Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that data point. Hopefully the red line works better for you. It sounds like that's kind of you replaced it. Hopefully that does a better job of like maintaining your lockouts over time. Uh, Rona Rona Timbalala. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that fun name right. That's cool. I'm running the Max 360C. Is it worth upgrading to the Redline 360C? Potentially. I mean, longer range, yes. Better blind spot filtering, yes. Think it detects some additional photo radar guns. Also has the RDD immunity if you need it. But basically, longer range and better blind spot filtering, I think, would be the two most practical benefits for most people. If you're finding that you're getting annoyed by the maxes, like BSM filtering, if the false is too much, or you're running into situations where, in your direct experience, forget what it says in tests, like you've been running it for a while, you know your area. If you're running into issues where you're like, hey, I'm not getting enough range, there's a lot of instant on that's used, or uh, we've got a lot of mountains and hills and trees and all that kind of stuff, and I'm getting short detection range with the max, that could be a reason to like upgrade to the red line. But if you've got a lot of like just constant on super flat terrain and you're already getting like 8 mile alerts on the max, like the range isn't going to be a huge benefit, you know? So that might be something to consider for your specific use case. Yep. So Charlie Lloyd, Escort wireless laser protection is a very good. We talked about that a little bit earlier. It's passable in areas if needed. I run in my wife's car and it's still okay. It's passable. If you got a smaller car, easier guns, only need front protection. Okay, that'll work. But if you can get something like an ALP, I would recommend like stepping up to it. Let's see, Jim. I'm still getting a ton of KA false bogey counts in my V1. Okay, hopefully you get that figured out. Yeah, the latest firmware update should have helped that. So let's see. Hello. You can always like if that's a serious question, I can see the rest of your stuff. I don't know if you're just trolling or whatever, but like if it's a serious question, yeah, you can always do something with like muting certain frequencies with an app or using like custom frequencies or something to take care of them. But let's see. Low. I don't know if I'm overthinking, but if you notice a KA range decrease after the update with Mitharu, I don't think so. I believe some people have tested that. I don't think it affects it. The only thing that I could think of is, well, no, that's with the R7, not with the R3. I don't think it's supposed to decrease the range. You can always go just do a test, get a KA gun off eBay, set up your own test, and like run with stock firmware, and then switch over to Mitharu's firmware and run it again, and find out for yourself. That's the best way to find out for sure. Testing with like real world situations, things can vary so much that it's hard to do like a direct A/B head to head test. Let's see. Forgot what the name is, but have you seen the app on Android that's supposed to show nearby radar alerts? Incorporates ways and aircraft alerts. Yeah, so I've done a video on that. That's Highway Radar and JBV1. I've done multiple videos on that, I believe. Yeah, just basically take a look at Highway Radar and JBV1. Those would be the two to get you like the kind of ways on steroids and the aircraft notifications. Different UIs. Some people prefer Highway Radar, others prefer JBV1. Both are great. Good night, El Gonzalez. Yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out. Let's see. Abraham Ben, do you know of any updates for the 360C? What's a 360C? There's like Max 360C, Max 360C Mark II, Redline 360C, Max Cam 360C, Redline CI 360C. So 5 360C detectors. So that nickname was awesome when it was like just the Max 360C. But now that there's so many, it's like gotta find better shorthand for all this kind of stuff. Jason just joined. Is this Vortex mood lighting? It is. Yeah, like now that it's starting to get darker outside, like I'm not getting all that ambient light, so this stuff is really kicking up. So I'm actually having to play with like trying to use my monitor to brighten things up. So like maybe just that probably makes my face too bright. So I'm trying to play with like balancing the light levels as we do the live stream. You can see my face gets darker, it gets brighter. So like I'm kind of playing with it a little bit as we go. I've got some of my. I was kind of thinking of using some of those lights, which I've been using for like close-ups of some dash cams and battery packs. I'm working on a video of that. So I was like, oh, maybe I can throw up one right here, but it was so bright just before I went on live stream. I was like, just kick it back there again. It's fine. But get the live sticks or light sticks and play some rave music. Abraham, Max 360C. My apologies. Okay, yeah. My middle name's Ariel. Oh, cool. That's cool. Nice to meet another. So let's see. Any updates? So yeah, the original Max 360C, it's been discontinued. I don't know to what degree they're going to keep updating it besides like red light camera alerts. So I wouldn't expect too much. What's it called? The last big update that came out was for a lot of their Blackfin DSP detectors. They're newer platform ones. But that's not entirely true because there was also the Max 3, which is an older platform detector that also got some updates. Okay. So they're like, well, if they could update that, then they could also do like the original Max 360. They could do the original Max 360C. So they certainly could if they want to. It's just a question of if they will. Max Cam, that's a detector that I'm wondering if it's going to be getting a newer update too. I know a lot of you guys in the comments and stuff on the videos are like, hey, where's the comparable update for the Max Cam? They got another update a little while ago, but not this same one. So that's one that we've all kind of been waiting on. The lighting reminds me of the show Forensic Files. Yeah. Now that things are getting darker, it stands out more. It's kind of fun. It's cool. I see more of the shadows like this one right there. I guess just from one of the lights and it's partially being blocked, and so the way it throws the shadows kind of cool. So Frederick, when will the R9 be available for purchase and install? They haven't officially announced it. I've heard maybe July, but they haven't officially announced it. Is it effective against the Dragon? So we've tested full sizes and compacts. I've had a variety of results. I've tested several hardware iterations. I have to go back and look through the firmwares. Some of the older ones, not so much, but they've gotten better. So that's actually something that we'd have to test is acquiring a bunch of Dragon eyes, especially getting some of the newer variants. We can test against older ones, but the newer ones are working differently. So testing against the Dragon eye is actually getting harder and harder over time, especially just getting the newer versions of it. So we could of course do some testing with some that we have on hand. We can tell you with that, but that's not necessarily going to be fully representative of what you'll see in the real world. So it's hey, we've tested against these Dragon eyes, but is that the type that you'll see in your area? Are those the ones the cops are actually running? Maybe, maybe not. So that's actually one of the challenging things about doing the testing. So it can be hard to say for sure. Just to be honest. Daniel C, are you drinking? Or what are you drinking? Yeah, a little whiskey. You an engineer? That is my background. Yeah. Electrical computer engineering from Georgia Tech. Class of 06, I think. Yeah. It's a hell of an engineer. Hey. Eric, don't they make a battery for the R8? They don't. What would they need a battery for? It's just designed to be powered by your alternator when you're driving and then turns off when you're parked. There's no reason to have a battery for it per se. You just wire it to your fuse box or whatever, like anything else. So what would you want? I guess I'm curious, a battery for you said R8, not R9. I apologize. But no, even that one, I mean, plug it into your rearview mirror, plug it into a cigarette lighter, hardwire it. None of the stuff you could, if you really wanted to, you could do a USB battery pack, then output that to a cigarette lighter adapter, which then the cigarette lighter plug runs to. You could do this kind of janky thing or something, but it's easier just hardwire it to your fuse box. And if you need something else, just tap in your rearview mirror or use a cigarette lighter or something. So I've seen some people do it with the Redenso DS1. They'll use the USB, and you can do USB to USB. Great, that makes it easier without doing the USB to cigarette lighter adapter. So I mean, there's things you can do, but for the most part, just hardwired or something. Let's see. Oh, interesting. I don't know why, but my red line has longer range from the rear instead of the front. How did you come across that? Was that the latch? So after you pass an officer, the signal stays on longer. That could totally happen if, let's say, he's parked this way and he's shooting radar at the front. You're coming to him from behind, right? you're going to get kind of a shorter detection because the gun's not even pointed at you. But then when you pass the officer, he's hitting you right from behind. You can drive really far away. You're picking it up for a long time. And so it's like, hey, I'm picking up longer from the rear. So that's kind of my thought process of like when you say I'm getting a longer range from the rear, that could actually be the reason why. Doesn't necessarily mean the detector is more sensitive with the rear antenna. Usually they focus like the front because the bigger antenna, it's more powerful, it's more sensitive and stuff. Actually, fun fact, the Redline doesn't have a rear X-band antenna. It's only K and KA. So, yeah. Let's see. Fatima, been watching all your videos. Just settled on the B1 Gen 2. Loving it. RDD immunity in good old Virginia. Great choice. Yeah. Radar Busters is now accepting R9 orders for $29.95, including laser jammers, shipping the end of June, beginning of July, they say. Sure. Yeah, they're saying that. Talked to Uniden, and they're still kind of questioning some of the dates. I guess that's why the Radar Busters is even wondering about it too. So yeah, I mean that's what people are saying right now, around $3,000 or so. Let's see. Fatima, getting car tinted next week with the sun strip. Any advice on how dark I should get it without interfering? The only thing to avoid is like just don't get a metallic tint. Just get something that's non-metallic, whether it's ceramic or whatever else. The metallic coating can actually block the radar signals. So that's really the only thing to avoid. Laser is going to impact laser detection just because like it's going to block some of the light from getting to the laser sensor, but the V1's already really sensitive and laser detection is not a huge priority for a radar detector. So I mean the V1's great at laser sensitivity. It's still great, but like it's mostly the radar I think was what you'd want to keep an eye out for. So just when you're getting the tint, just make sure that you specify a non-metallic tint strip. You're fine. Gabe, what's your opinion on hardwiring through the fuse box versus the wiring harness or direct to the battery? Fuse box is usually just the easiest thing to do. You can use like an ATA circuit or something and plug in and then just find a ground somewhere. So it's usually the easiest thing. Um, you can, if you want to go like physically directly to the battery, you can, but you still got to find a way to turn the thing on and off, right? You don't want the thing like staying on when because it's still got power from the battery, right? So usually you just find like an ignition triggered source in the fuse box and you go in that way. I've seen people sometimes like if your cigarette lighter is turns on and off. Like some cars, the fuse box, all of them are always hot. And so like maybe the cigarette lighter turns on and off. So you can go back there and you can grab power off the back of the cigarette lighter, like the cable that runs in or something. You can grab powers that way. But yeah, usually the fuse box is kind of like the standard go-to way. But there's ways I'm sure like professionals might do something even cleaner than that are tapping into cables that leave your fuse box completely empty. So like, yeah, there's better ways of doing it. I'm sure that's yeah. RFK Tech. These detectors draw very low amps. Yeah, they're like half an amp or something at full draw or something. It's funny if you put it on like a power meter, you can actually watch the power usage go up. Like as it alerts, draws more power, or like as a speaker goes up, you can adjust the speaker volume and you'll see it actually start to draw more power or something. Yeah, but it's true. It's not a ton of power. Let's see. I'm really looking forward to your video on R9 testing for laser jamming and radar. Based on your usage, do you think having an R7 or R8 for long distance radar detection will still be needed? No, I mean, if you have an R9, like you've got a long distance detector. I am still a little bit curious about performance to see the final stuff because we've seen some variable things with the R9. So that's also something I'm wondering about is like, to your question, is it performance? Is it like a custom installed R8? Yes or no? That's a big question. That's kind of how it's being presented, but it has to perform that way. So we'll have to see. And I'm not saying that to be like trying to like tease you guys or anything. Like I haven't gone out and done the testing yet, so I can't say for sure yet. It's just I've seen some variable stuff before. So let's see. R9 might be a buy if you give me a stamp of approval for jamming. Yeah, that'll be something for testing. I don't think I've tested the R9's jammers like twice already. That's coming out again. So I've sent all my guns out to others. So they're, I think, going to be handling the laser stuff. So we'll have to see how that does. Yeah, so I guess TBD after testing. Who makes the laser sensor for the new Redline 360C? Do you mean the CI or like the windshield mount? How do they compare to the ALP? I don't think anybody has done any testing for the Redline CI 360C yet. That's a big question to see how good do these like smaller laser heads from Escort perform. They are physically different. It looks like, as far as the way like they've got separate transponders, like transmitters, I believe, so they can kind of like ALP with like separate transmit and receive now. So they do function differently. So like even if the algorithms are the same, I wouldn't be surprised to see some improvements nonetheless, just due to like different head capabilities. So we'll have to see. But again, that's what testing's all about, you know. Been I even followed up with Escort again. I was like, hey, can you guys send one over? I'm trying to get it set up here. So I'm trying to get like at this point, I think Redline CI, Stinger radar and laser, and then like upgrade, swap out the TMGs. I've still got like dead TMGs in my car, so upgrade to like the Alpha 17s, do all that kind of stuff. Figure out something with like battery packs and dash cams and rerunning the wires, and still going back and forth on what I want to do with that too. But yeah, next upgrade is still, that'll probably be like the big stuff in there. Let's see. Kevin, thanks for the chat service. No more V1 Gen 2 false alerts. Yay, awesome. How did you do that? Was it like through JPV1, or was there like a firmware update for the V1, or what kind of like false alerts? Maybe also you can specify if it's radar, K or KA or laser. So kind of maybe tell me a little bit more about the V1 false alert elimination, because that's obviously awesome. That's really great. Let's see. Not wiring in the cigarette lighter. New BMW, they don't like you jacking around with the electric. It's interesting that you bring that up. So the reason I've got these umbrellas right there, I've been working on a dash cam battery pack video. And at the beginning, I talk about like, hey, you know, why do you need a battery pack? You've got a battery in your car, you know, and why would you go spend money for like an extra dedicated battery pack? And one of the reasons why I bring it up is like it could potentially be useful is exactly that with BMWs. Like they don't like it when things are tapping into their electronics, like even dash cams and stuff. So yeah, sometimes it just makes more sense to get a dedicated one instead. Vortex Gamer, hey, off topic, but do you know how to remove the A119 Mini from the car to update it and put it back? You don't have to remove the dash cam. You can just go to VFO's website. You can download the firmware update. It's just a file. You pop it in onto the micro SD card. So you'll take out the memory card, plug that into your computer, and then just grab the firmware update file, put that onto the memory card, and then put the memory card back in the dash cam, and the dash cam will update itself. So you don't have to take the dash cam out to update it. Do want to note though that once you update it, it's going to basically reset all of your settings to like factory default. So it'll go back from like miles per hour to kilometers per hour and like all that kind of stuff, right? So you want to go back in and like do your settings again. But other than that, that's how you do it. You don't have to take the dash cam out. Frederick, I've got an older integrated Escort 9500 Ci in my 2014 Audi R8. Was wondering what system you would recommend to replace it with. That was the whole beginning of the video. Yeah, you can rewind to the beginning, because like that was kind of something I went into the thought process of like the R9 versus the Redline versus the Stinger versus the Redenso versus all that kind of stuff. So sorry, I know you came in late. That was kind of what we talked about. So you can check it out. I don't know if you can rewind a live stream when we're in the middle of a live stream per se. But if you can, yeah, maybe after we finish, I'll hop off or something. You can check it out tomorrow or whenever we finish. Like you can check that out. But it's a little bit of a tricky question, because I don't have necessarily like those systems yet. I don't know, and the laser, nobody's tested that yet. So there's still a lot of question marks. It's a little bit tough to say right now. Again, being real, I wish I had like a solid answer. I've got a 2018 RFK Tech USA. Got a 2018 Durango RT. Has AGM deep cycle factory battery and runs my dash cam for days. My Bantrue X4S. Yeah. That's awesome. There's a lot of situations where like you can totally use your car battery. It works out great. So I'm poor because my wife's rich. Wife tax. Okay. Dan, I'm wondering how warm it gets in the Northwest during summer. Or I don't know how warm it gets in the Northwest during summer, but I'm wondering how your battery packs fare in the heat. I haven't had any issues with that. I have had some issues occasionally with the dash cams themselves, like they're hitting directly sunlight right there on the windshield. Those sometimes do overheat and shut down, but the batteries are usually like kind of in the back. They're in the shade, like down low. So usually they're okay. I mean, it gets maybe 90 sometimes. Sometimes it can get to like triple digits here, but definitely not as hot as what you guys in like Arizona and Texas and New Mexico and Florida, like you guys have way more than we do. So the heat stuff, it's more, I think, like people down south would test that more. I'm closer to my Canadian friends here with their igloos, a little bit farther north. So, I mean, yeah, it's more temperate here, I guess. For Tech Gamer, R8 laser question. For the R8, does it detect laser automatically, or do you need laser jammers in order for it to be being detected? I live in the Midwest, and I've only encountered KA. So the R8 can detect laser, not very well. It's not very sensitive. Windshield mount detectors are in a very suboptimal location to detect laser being shot down low at the grill. So they're not great at detecting laser, and even if they do go off, the officer already has your speed. So like it's not that useful. If you plug in the what did you get Uniden laser jammers or anybody else's, like it's gonna work way better. Actually will give you time to slow down, do something, right? Whereas your radar detector doesn't. So I mean, it can detect laser, yes, but it's not going to give you any sort of reliable protection. That's where your laser jammers come into play if you want like protection. So, mm. Gabe is asking, are you still enjoying your Anderson power distribution board plugs for organization and swapping systems? Had to get a Chinese knockoff from Amazon since West Mountain Radio never has them in stock. Yeah, yeah. How has yours been? Like, has it been working out well for you? I've actually been pretty happy with mine. It's been great. I mean, I've got tons of stuff hooked up to it. It's been fine. Yeah, I mean, I've been happy with it. No complaints. So I think I did sometimes get like low voltage warnings or something, but think we got that fixed early on. I forget what was causing it, but yeah, I mean, I've been running it for years and it's been great. I'm really happy with it. So, for Tech Gamer, what new video you're working on? Right now, best dashcam battery packs. Um, I also want to do VFO A119 Mini 2. Right now, I've got the original Mini, the Mini 2, the A139 Pro, and like a bunch of black views installed in the car. So Mini 2 I need to work on. I just got the replacement ThinkWare U3000 in the mail today. That one is now available as of today, June 2nd. So that's now like officially available. Um, I've got the dash cam with the two lenses for like license plates. I've got the updated version of that. It records at 2K instead of 1080p and also adds like Wi-Fi and available now with a rear camera. So like a triple channel setup. I want to do something on that. Still need to do videos on like the Blackview 770X box and the two 970 series ones. Um, the VFOW M1, got to do at some point. I've got the Vantru N5, which is a 4-channel dash cam. So like front, rear, and dual interior ones. Still got to work on that one. They've got another, I think the N4 Pro is coming out. It's like an A139 Pro competitor with like the same 4K Sony IMX678 Starvis 2 sensor. So I got to do that. Got to go out and test the R9 radar and laser, do reviews and comparisons with other ones and settings guides, and got to get the Redline at some point, got to get the Stinger at some point, got to test R7 1.50 at some point. I don't know how I'm going to do all that. I don't know. Uh, Everything takes so much time. Just getting B-roll for my dashcam battery pack video is taking like 2 days straight of just shooting photos and getting the wires put together. Just the B-roll of the stuff and like go out into the car and getting stuff like I'm trying to think maybe I can do some dash cam videos that are a lot simpler and quicker and like not all the crazy extensive testing and like just trying to get through some of the stuff. Like I don't know how I'm gonna do it. So that's why I'm here. It's 9:30 p.m. and that's why I'm doing a video because I got a little time. Let's do it. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. To answer your question. Uh I'll probably hang out here for a couple more minutes, then I'll head off to go relax or something. But Big Doggy, think we're gonna get to see an Android Auto or Apple CarPlay app for the AOP Connect or Escort Drive Smarter? Nope, nobody does that, and it has to do with restrictions from Apple and from Google. They are really selective with what apps they allow to work on Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and there's a lot of apps which would love to be able to use there that could. People ask all the time, and I mean, if they allowed it openly, then sure, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll just make an app and it'll work and it'll show up, cool." But like, there's a reason why there's only a handful of apps that do that. I've seen some people do stuff with like aftermarket displays and then mirroring their phone and doing all this kind of stuff, but like, it's not a something I expect to have it natively be supported. Would be cool, but really, it's just you rely on your phone and stuff, and then your phone does like false alert meeting in the background and stuff. So would be nice for maybe like JBV1 display on the dash or something. That would be cool. But let's see. Corvette fanatic. Any types of laser jammers that can be portable from car to car, like windshield mount detector? Not really. They all have to be installed in the grill. The closest thing to that is what we talked about earlier in the video, the Escort ZW5s. Those can be installed in the grill, but the big appeal there is instead of having to like run a wire through the car's firewall, you just wire it to your car battery directly, like positive and your ground, and then it just like wirelessly talks to a special power cable for the detector. So just no wire. So if you wanted to do like a temporary install for a rental or moving from car to car or something, I mean, it's involved to do it. It's not a quick thing, but like you could potentially do it. That would be the best option. There's no windshield mount laser jammer. I think I've seen somebody test it before and had surprisingly good results with like an AOP or something, but you do run into potential issues with like the eyes with lasers firing so close, like in the cabin and stuff. Not a good idea, but um, yeah. I don't really like this light that's here. It's just, oops, hit the mic. It's kind of harsh against my face, reflections and stuff. But I mean, it works for now. Let's see. Slow down. Thanks for jumping on at 8:30 and sticking around until I can jump on. Yeah, cool. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday night. Just hanging out, talking countermeasures. Let's see. So Gabe. I guess you were asking. What was the previous question? So I guess we'll come back. I've mainly been using it to test systems on my table instead of running it in and out of the house constantly to test the car. Oh, I get the power pole stuff. I'm using a wall to cigarette adapter with a cigarette lighter to Anderson. So okay, so you've been doing it at home. That's a great idea. Yeah. I've got like a bunch of splitters and adapters here for like USB and cigarette lighter stuff. I use some of the like USB to female cigarette lighter adapters you can buy them on Amazon for like $9 or something. I got a whole handful of those. Those are really useful. But yeah, I guess your like knockoff Anderson connector thing should do the job too. Let's see. Dimitri, should I use Pop Alert in Oregon and Washington? Looks like it's a false alert after the last firmware update in the red line. Plus, I don't know when the police are shooting. It only alerts me 50%. Yeah, I mean, I'd still leave it turned off. In theory, I mean, they do use like B3s out here in Washington. They're pretty common. So you could try turning it on, but like you see false alerts. So it's really hard to say, like, are they using pop? It's hard to say for sure because pop falses definitely happen. It's kind of like my detector alerted to K band or to multi radar. That doesn't mean that it was actually K band or multi radar. So it's hard to say for sure, but I mean, I leave it turned off. It's fine. But you can certainly play with it and just try it out for yourself. 12:30 Eastern, having a ball, dude. You're hanging out. It's tomorrow for you. So hey, hello from the past. Do you run after hours nightclub with that disco lighting? Yeah. So I figured I've got another light back. This one right there. I got a replacement like under warranty. It died, and then I replaced it, and now it's not hooked up to my like smart assistant. I don't want to say the name and trigger yours, but like I have to reconfigure it to do all the lighting and the brightness and stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of more for like daytime shooting. I don't usually do the night stuff, but now that all the ambient stuff is off, then yeah, it's just we're in nightclub mode now. Does your R8 or R9 take like good 2 to 3 seconds to update the arrows when the source is passed? It's pretty good. It's pretty good with the arrow flips. Um, yeah, I've been pretty happy with like the arrow transitions. The only tricky thing is just making sure like I've got the antennas mounted in a place where they can actually see the signals properly. But now that I've got them kind of like under the headrests, they seem to be doing a pretty good job there. Let's see. Slow down on the ZR5. Okay, so the wired ones. I've heard mixed results for 2 heads up front, 3 heads up front, 4 heads up front. Have you seen much on reduced effectiveness when adding more heads? So I think the optimal with that generation is 4 heads. You can get away with two. Some people like to do three because that's kind of like ALP does three and TMG does three, and a lot of guys are doing three. But like that one supports four, so because it only supports four max, if you're doing three, you might as well do four. And I do think Escort's algorithm is more optimized for four compared to three. Could be wrong, but I do think that four is better. There's been some tests, but yeah, I mean, you can always just review the tests. Is it install related? Is it jammer related? Is it placement related? You never know for sure. That's one of the nice things about getting like a lot of test data, a lot of results to kind of get a better idea with that. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't expect it to be like an ALP, but in the right situations, it can still be sufficient. Vortex gamer, you ever make videos on security cameras for home? I'd actually have, like outdoor security cameras and doorbell. So I run like Reolink and Ring cameras, and I did a video on that a couple years ago. Um, yeah, so I've done that, and I still get like requests from time to time from all sorts of companies of like, hey, would you review my security camera? And I get so many emails for you test this, review that, can you do it? Can you? I got another one the other day that was like, can we pay you a bunch of money to like feature our product on your website and put a banner ad there, and like we'll give you really high commissions every time they buy and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, do you not know me at all? You want me to like prominently advertise and be sponsored to recommend something I haven't even tested and used? I'm like, no, thank you. So most of this kind of stuff is just delete, 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 delete. There's quite a bit of stuff where people are like, how much can we pay to like have you review it and feature it in the channel? And I'm just like, delete, 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 delete. So yeah. Another video I've been meaning to do is talking about like the ethics and the behind the scenes of paid stuff and advertising and sponsorships and all that kind of stuff too. That's on the list as well. I've done some like written articles and write-ups on it, but I don't think I've done like a video on it yet. I think I've done like 2 or 3 write-ups on that topic. Let's see. Storm Chaser Noah Miller. I got a 4.3 mile detection for my Max 360C on 33.8 today. Blew my mind. That is impressive. I believe that, yeah, that platform is pretty good at 33.8, but I'm guessing Storm Tracer, you're probably in like flat terrain out in like Oklahoma or Kansas or something. So, I mean, that kind of detection range, I'm sure terrain was definitely playing in your favor there. Nenad, any info on the R8 integration with Uniden's jammers? Not really. They haven't announced anything, so we're waiting to see pricing, availability. How's it going to be packaged? When is it going to be available for sale? We don't know. Going back to the terrain with Storm Chaser Noah Miller, Northwest Ohio, actually, but yeah, very flat. Makes sense. Makes sense. That kind of detection range, especially on that detector, like it's got to be flat to pull that off. Rana to Malala. Are you a police officer? No. No. Fortech gamer. Maybe last 2 questions or so, and then I'll head out for the night. But is Highway Radar coming to iOS or no? It looks like no. There was a guy that was working on it. I forget exactly what happened. Oh, there's a bunny outside. That's cool. I forget it was him that got sick or had like family issues or something, but it seems like that project is stalled or might be dead at this point. We'll have to see. So I haven't heard much about it in a long time now. So I assume for now the project is dead. Hopefully it comes back to life. Somebody builds iOS apps. I mean, for Highway Radar, for more V1 stuff, more Uniden stuff, more Redenso needs to release an iOS app for DS1, their Nexus. So like, I mean, us, hey, iPhone guys, we're here too. You know, can you make stuff for us too, please? So I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, let's see. Have you ever crossed the Canadian border with your laser jammers? Any issues? No. I mean, I was just up in Vancouver like 2 weeks ago or something. It's fine. They're legal there. I had my car searched a couple of years ago. Um, Funny story, not countermeasure related or anything. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I had detectors and jammers and stuff, and it was fine. But I mean, that was BC, like they're legal there, so it's fine. Um, it's more like so BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan are the only 3. So like your western, southwest provinces is where they're legal. But if you go into like yeah, if you start going to the other provinces, that might be a little different. Go to Ontario, that'll be different. But yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, I think my mood lighting and I are gonna head off for the night. Go upstairs and rest. So thanks so much, everybody, for just hanging out and chatting. I know this is like a unusual, awkward time at 9:40 p.m. now Pacific, 12:40 Eastern. So yeah, good night to everybody. Thanks for hanging out here on a Friday, and hope you guys all have a great weekend. Take care.